Most punishment today doesn't bruise the body, it reshapes behavior. It happens quietly, legally, and systematically, and most people never realize it's happening at all. Why this matters. When people think about punishment, they usually imagine force, prisons, police, weapons, or physical threat. But modern societies rarely rely on violence to control behavior anymore. They don't need to. Instead, they rely on systems. Systems that don't hurt you directly, but slowly narrow your options, drain your energy, and shape what feels possible. You aren't beaten into compliance. You're managed into it. And because this process feels normal, most people never recognize it as punishment. One, economic pressure as behavior control. In earlier societies, disobedience was punished openly. Today, it's punished economically. Miss a payment, fall behind, or make one mistake, and you don't lose freedom instantly. You lose margin. Fees pile up, interest compounds, and your options quietly shrink. The system doesn't need to threaten you. It simply makes deviation expensive. Debt is especially powerful because it punishes delay, risk, and experimentation. People don't stop trying new things because they lack ambition. They stop because the system raises the cost of failure. Over time, compliance becomes the safest strategy. 2, time poverty as a disciplinary tool. One of the most effective forms of punishment is exhaustion. Long work hours, draining commutes, and fragmented schedules slowly consume attention and energy. When time becomes scarce, resistance collapses. You don't question systems when you're tired. You don't organize or reflect. You just recover enough to function again. Historically, control required surveillance. Today, it requires busyness. A population that never rests deeply doesn't rebel. It adapts. 3, algorithms as invisible enforcers. Algorithms don't punish directly. They deprioritize. Visibility drops, reach declines, and opportunities disappear without explanation. There's no authority to argue with and no clear rule you violated, just silence. This form of punishment is especially effective because it creates self-correction. People instinctively adjust their behavior by posting safer content, avoiding risky opinions, and following trends they don't even believe in. Control doesn't come from force here. It comes from uncertainty. 4, social credit without a score. Even in societies without formal social credit systems, reputation quietly functions as one. Employment history, online presence, and personal associations all become part of a permanent record. Mistakes don't disappear, they follow you, not as jail time, but as reduced trust. Modern punishment often operates through memory. The system remembers gaps, deviations, and anomalies, then subtly reroutes opportunities away from you. You're never told you're being punished. You're just never chosen again. 5, psychological self-policing. The most efficient system doesn't enforce rules externally, it installs them internally. People begin to censor themselves, avoid standing out, and preemptively comply, not because someone explicitly told them to, but because they've learned the cost of not doing so. This is how punishment becomes invisible. When fear of consequence lives inside the individual, the system no longer needs to intervene. 6, bureaucracy as slow violence. Bureaucracy rarely says no outright. Instead, it asks for another form, tells you to wait, or suggests checking back later. These delays punish without confrontation. Energy drains over time, and momentum quietly dies. This kind of punishment favors institutions, because institutions can afford to wait. Individuals usually can't. 7, normalization of stress as a baseline. When stress becomes normal, complaint starts to sound like weakness. People stop asking whether the system is broken and start asking why they can't handle it. This shift is crucial. A system that convinces individuals to internalize failure never has to defend itself. Burnout becomes a personal flaw. Anxiety becomes a personal issue, and exhaustion becomes a personal problem. Structural punishment is reframed as individual inadequacy. Psychological and system insight. Why this works. Modern systems don't aim to dominate, they aim to stabilize. Stability requires predictability, and predictability requires shaping behavior. Violence is disruptive and creates backlash. Invisible punishment is efficient. It produces compliance without resistance. The most powerful systems don't threaten people, they condition them. They make certain choices feel irresponsible, risky, or impossible until people stop considering those choices at all. Most people living inside these systems don't feel oppressed. They feel tired, distracted, and behind. And that's the point. When punishment is silent, it doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like life. And the most effective systems in history are the ones that never have to raise their voice, because by the time you notice them, you've already adapted.